Genesis chapter 20, verses 1 to 18, Bible Study and Commentary, KJV. Today, we continue our journey through the book of Genesis, moving from Genesis chapter 19 into Genesis chapter 20, verses 1 through 18. This passage reveals not only the weakness of man, but also the mercy, protection, and sovereignty of God. It teaches us about fear, faith, human failure, and divine preservation. Let us begin by understanding the context. After the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis 19, Abraham moves southward toward the region of Gerar, dwelling between Kadesh and Shur. This movement sets the stage for another testing moment in Abraham's life. Though he is a man chosen by God and called the father of faith, he is still human and capable of fear and failure. From Genesis chapter 20, verses 1 through 2, we see that Abraham tells King Abimelech that Sarah is his sister. This is not the first time Abraham does this. Earlier in Genesis 12, he said the same thing in Egypt because he feared for his life. Here again, we see Abraham repeating the same mistake. From a human perspective, Abraham is afraid. He assumes that there is no fear of God in this place, and that he might be killed because of Sarah's beauty. Sarah, even in her advanced age, remains a woman of striking presence. Instead of trusting fully in God's promise and protection, Abraham acts out of fear and self-preservation. From a Hebrew and cultural perspective, calling Sarah his sister is a partial truth. She is indeed his half-sister, as later revealed. However, withholding the full truth becomes deception. In biblical understanding, half-truths used to mislead still carry moral weight. From verses 3 through 7, God intervenes directly. God appears to Abimelech in a dream and says, "Behold, thou art but a dead man for the woman, which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife." This moment shows us something profound about God's character. Even though Abraham failed, God still protects Sarah and the covenant line. Sarah must remain untouched because through her will come Isaac, the promised son, and ultimately the covenant that leads to the Messiah. God's protection does not depend solely on human perfection. It depends on his covenant faithfulness. Abimelech responds with integrity. He tells God that he acted in innocence, with clean hands and a pure heart. He did not know Sarah was Abraham's wife. God acknowledges this and says that he himself prevented Abimelech from sinning by not allowing him to touch Sarah. Here we see a powerful theological truth. God not only judges sin, but also restrains sin. Many times, people are kept from falling into greater wrongdoing not by their own strength, but by God's unseen intervention. From verses 7 through 10, God instructs Abimelech to restore Sarah to Abraham. God calls Abraham a prophet for the first time in Scripture. Even though Abraham has just acted in fear and deception, God still recognizes his calling and spiritual position. This teaches us that calling and grace can coexist with human weakness. God does not cancel his purpose because of one failure. Instead, he restores and continues his work. Abimelech obeys God quickly. He confronts Abraham and asks, "What have you done to us?" His words reflect moral clarity. Even a pagan king recognizes that Abraham's actions brought danger upon an entire nation. Abimelech then restores Sarah and gives Abraham gifts: sheep, oxen, servants, and silver. He allows Abraham to dwell wherever he pleases in the land. This restoration goes beyond mere correction, it becomes blessing. From a spiritual perspective, this moment shows that God can turn human failure into testimony. Abraham's mistake could have led to disaster, yet God transforms it into a display of his protection and sovereignty. In verses 17 through 18, Abraham prays for Abimelech and his household. God heals them, for the Lord had closed the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah. Through Abraham's prayer, healing and restoration come. This reveals another deep spiritual principle. The one who failed becomes the one who intercedes. God still uses Abraham as a channel of blessing, even after his mistake. Now let us consider the spiritual lessons. First, fear can weaken faith. Abraham believed God's promises, yet in moments of fear, he acted as though God's protection was uncertain. This reflects our own lives. Even those who walk closely with God sometimes struggle between faith and fear. Second, God's covenant faithfulness is greater than human failure. God protects Sarah not because Abraham was perfect, but because God's promise must stand. The covenant line leading to Isaac and ultimately to Christ cannot be broken. Third, God restrains sin and protects his purposes. He prevented Abimelech from touching Sarah. He intervened before damage could be done. Many times, God works behind the scenes to preserve his plan and protect his people. Fourth, restoration follows obedience. Abimelech obeys God and is healed. Abraham prays and becomes a channel of blessing again. God's intention is not only correction, but restoration. Finally, this chapter reveals the mercy of God. God does not abandon Abraham. He corrects, protects, restores, and continues to use him. This is the grace of God, a grace that sustains his people, even when they stumble. As we reflect on Genesis chapter 20, we see ourselves in Abraham. We see moments of fear, imperfect decisions, and reliance on our own understanding. Yet we also see a faithful God who guards his promises and leads us forward. May we learn to trust God more deeply, even in uncertain places. May we remember that his protection surrounds his people, and his purpose cannot fail. And may we walk in humility, knowing that God's grace is greater than our weakness. Thank you.